Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Making a Comeback, 5 Surprising Lessons from Stroke Survivors. We're so delighted that you're here with us on this beautiful afternoon. We're going to make sure that we don't waste your time today. You are going to be glad that you spent this hour with us, and we're going to have some fun, too. This is me. I look like my grandpa, but it's me, Randy Quare, and I'm a senior communications specialist here at PeaceHealth. We want to know about you, though. This day is all about giving you the education that you are going to need to protect yourself, protect the people that you care about from stroke, how to handle a situation if it comes up, and a recovery. To do that, we're not going to ask you questions directly through the phone. There's just too many people on the line, so everybody is muted. We're going to ask you to participate in our polls. And if you have a specific question for us that isn't addressed in our polls, don't worry about it. We got that covered. If you're using a smartphone to watch our webinar today, at the top of your phone screen, you'll see a question mark. Click on that, and that will open up a window for you where you can type in the question for us. And if you're on your desktop, you'll see a box that says type message here. Couldn't be any simpler than that. Just type your message there, click send, and it'll pop up in front of our screen, and we'll be able to pose your question to our two speakers today. And they are a couple of fabulous ladies. The first one is Louise Jenkins. She's an MSN, an MBA, a BSN, a CPHQ, and then they ran out of alphabet letters, and so she stopped going for more certifications. She's the manager of our certified DNV Stroke Center and Telestroke at PeaceHealth Southwest Medical Center, a career nurse leader in emergency medicine and stroke care. She's spoken many times on this subject. She's part of the National Stroke Association. She is also a stroke survivor, so she is double qualified to speak with us here today. And unfortunately, she is also an avid St. Louis Cardinal fan. And as we all know, this is the year of the Seattle Mariners. Also with us today is Joanie Peckels. She's a volunteer here at PeaceHealth Southwest, lead stroke ambassador here at PeaceHealth Southwest in Vancouver, and I know we have people listening all throughout the Pacific Northwest. She's a stroke and a TBI support group leader, also a stroke survivor, and she's just a fantastic lady. She's not a person who wakes up in the morning and says, boy, I hope I get a chance to speak publicly today, so we're really grateful that she is with us here today. Louise, Joanie, welcome. We're so glad that you're here today.
Thank you, Randy. It's so exciting to be here today, and I just want to point out to everyone that this is National Stroke Awareness Month, so this webinar is a very timely time to have it come out. We're going to talk today about just a basics review on what a stroke is and how it might look. We're going to talk about 5 surprising lessons from survivors and have a question and answer period.
And we also, as I mentioned, we want to get to know about our listening audience, because we do want to kind of tailor this presentation to what you want to know and what you want to learn from us. So for the first thing we want you to do, we want to run to your computer right now and answer this question. What is a stroke? What is a stroke? Now, Louise knows the answer to that, because she's dedicated a big part of her life to that. And Joanie knows that, but what do you think? So everybody, if you could, go to your computer and answer it. Is a stroke a blocked or broken blood vessel in the brain? Is it a brain attack? Is it a game changer? Or is it all of the above? So we'd like to get your views on what you think a stroke is. And I know when I have conversations with people that don't spend a lot of time thinking about this, they mix stroke and heart attack up. They use them interchangeably. Is a stroke and a heart attack, is that the same thing? So it looks like we've got a lot of people who have already voted, so I'm going to close up the poll right now and share the results. And the results show that 89% of our viewers or participants said all of the above. 89% said all of the above. The other 11% said it's a blocked or broken blood vessel in the brain. And I'm not going to say which is the correct answer. Louise and Joanie, which do you think is correct?
All of the above.
Right, all of the above, because the basic physiology is a blocked or broken vessel in the brain. but it's also known as a brain attack because it's the same mechanism. It's a clot or some reason that the artery is blocked in the brain, just like it is in the heart when the person has a heart attack. So it's often referred to as a brain attack. Definitely is a game changer. It changes your life. It changes your family's life. It changes everything. So we choose all of the above.
You know, when I was looking at a game changer, I had a thought. I met a man recently who had a stroke, and half of his body, half of his face was affected, but he got effective, immediate treatment, and within a couple of percent back to his old self. And so I was thinking of a game changer. It doesn't have to necessarily be a permanent game changer if you act appropriately and effectively. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes.
Absolutely. Right now, I want to talk just a little bit about your brain in general. People really don't know a lot about the brain. Your brain is your master computer, and this picture here I just absolutely love because it shows what parts of your brain control which part of your body, and it can be your emotions, it can be your understanding, your speech, your sight, your movement, your sensation. But it just depends on where that brain attack happens in your brain, where you're going to see what deficit occur distally, such as over on the left side where it says your unique identity or your ability to solve problems. That's the front of your brain. So a person that has a stroke there could have a problem with their identity or their personality or their problem solving. Whereas when it happens more in the middle, where it talks about feeling the sun on my face or dancing, being able to move my arms and legs, that would be the motor and the sensory. Then in the middle is the talking center of the brain, where it affects not just a person's ability to talk, but also to understand speech, depending on which area. And then your hearing can be affected. And when you get to the back of the brain, your sight, you can have changes in your sight. You can lose part of vision or become unable to understand the written word. And then the very, very bottom where it says play, that is an interesting part of your brain that has to do with your coordination or your balance. So someone that has a stroke there would have a problem shooting a basketball, riding a two-wheel bike. My stroke was in that part of my brain, and I cannot ride a two-wheel bike now, and I can't wear heels, high heels at all, because I'll fall off of them. So I just want everybody to realize that your brain is your master computer.
Louise, is there one part of the brain that is more often attacked than others? Like the word talk shows up right in front of you on this picture. Is that an area of the brain that is more likely to be attacked by stroke, or is it completely random?
I think a lot of it is random, but I have to say there's new data out that shows the main vessels that run laterally through the brain, like right where that talk is, it goes across there. That's your mid-cerebral artery. It's the biggest artery of your brain that feeds each half of your brain. And about 40% of strokes occur in that large artery. That's significant because when that large artery is blocked at certain places, it can wipe out a lot of all of that is distal. So about 40% can be very debilitating, I can say that.
Interesting. All right, so we're going to advance to the next slide here, which is stroke basics. What is this all about? Well,
strokes are pretty much a preventable happening, and you have to reduce your risk factors. Strokes can be genetic. You know, if your grandparents, your parents, your brother, sister have had a stroke, that raises your personal risk of stroke. So the things that you can do is to take control of the risk factors that you can. And then when you look at these risk factors, notice that you see these when we talk about taking care of your heart. It's the same risk factors to take care of your brain. So actually, when you eat heart healthy and you lower your blood pressure and cholesterol and you exercise and you do all these things on the list to help your heart, you're actually helping your brain too. So we need to stress the importance of some things you can't control, like your genetics or your age, but these things that you see in front of you, you can control. You've got to know your numbers, your blood pressure and your cholesterol, and control these, your diabetics or any other disease, comorbid disease that you have, because diabetes, high blood sugar, is not good to help. It inhibits healing. There's a lot of things that high blood sugars can manifest, and that's not just for stroke, it's for any other disease process.
Louise, as I look at these stroke basics, one thing strikes me: not only are these 5 things a good idea for avoiding stroke, but if you do these 5 things, you're going to feel better during the day, regardless of stroke. You're going to have more energy. Life is going to be better. So, a lot of good reasons to participate and do these things.
Absolutely, it's a win-win all the way around.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what is this? It's very colorful.
This is a very great slide, and this is one of the handouts that will be available at the end of this presentation. When you look at the upper left, you see those risk factors I talked about in the blue column. So this is how you can kind of see if you're at high risk or not. So look, going laterally across with the blood pressure, you would, if you don't know your numbers or your systolic's higher than 140 overnight, you're higher than that. Or if you fall into the yellow or the green, you just go across each one of these rows and you make a little check mark in the box where you fall. Atrial fibrillation is an irregular heartbeat. And if you have atrial fibrillation, you would know that word because your doctor would have told you that, and you would be on probably Coumadin or another drug to help prevent clots from forming. Then there's the smoking and the cholesterol and the diabetes. That's all the things you need to know your numbers. And so the goal of this is to check each box in each line across and then add them up at the bottom for the total score in each column. Then on the back of the card, you see the score risk card results. If you have equal to or greater than 3 in the red, you need to talk to your healthcare provider right away and look at what risk factors you can control. Maybe be put on some special medication and change those lifestyle factors. If you fall in the caution, you have several risk factors that you need to look at. So you need to get in touch with your healthcare provider, but it's not something you need to do right now. But you need to make an appointment and talk about what you can control and what you can't. And then if you're green, that's the best place to be. Keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully I never see you on my end of this program. Down below, it reiterates, know your blood pressure, all the steps to take to be brain healthy and heart healthy. Over on the right, it talks about FAST: face, arms, speech, and time. That is the mnemonic used to help someone possibly identify a stroke occurring. And a little bit later on, we're going to expand that a little bit, so it would be even more specific to help people identify a stroke.
And then, Louise, I was looking in that yellow column, counting the check marks that I made. I have 5. This surprises and disappoints me because I was thinking it would be 0. That caught my attention. Some of these, the blood pressure, 128 over 78, that's actually a little bit too high. Cholesterol, 214, that's a little bit too high. This surprises me, and I realize now that I need to pay attention. So thanks for that. Thanks for freaking me out. I appreciate it.
You gotta know. So here's where we're going to expand on that FAST. Besides FAST, we have added balance and eyes. When you think about that schematic I showed you first, where the vision is in the back of the brain, and then the coordination, the balance. When you look at FAST, the face, arms, speech, and time, those are all up at the front of the brain. So recently, probably within the last 3 to 4 years, in the stroke community, we have added the BE. So B stands for balance. Does this person have a sudden onset of discoordination? They can't walk a straight line. They still have strength to walk, but they might look intoxicated. Frequently, people have that complaint. They say they feel intoxicated, but they're not. Eyes, if someone suddenly loses, like their peripheral or their side vision, or they have like a field cut, they lose just part of their vision in one or both eyes. Then we go into the fast, the facial droop on one side. Does the face droop down? It could be just the mouth. It could be the whole side of the face. And they'll have maybe a weakness in one arm that's weaker than the other. You would ask the person to hold their arms up and see if they're equal. And speech, back to what I talked about, the speech center is not just talking, it's also understanding. So if someone suddenly develops the inability to speak clearly, it's called word salad or garbled speech or stuttering speech when it's abnormal for them. It's a change in how they speak. Or it could be all at once you're talking to someone and they look at you like you're speaking Swahili because they cannot understand a word you're saying. And one thing with that is sometimes people become very scared because they don't understand what's happening in the world around, in their immediate area. So it can be very scary for everyone present. But I encourage everyone to learn the mnemonic Be Fast, and that's where anytime you're around someone a loved one, a coworker, a friend, and the people what's normal for them, and you see a sudden change in their balance, their vision, their face, their arms, their speech, then it's time to call 911. You've got to call 911 right away.
Louise, does a stroke always come with pain?
Absolutely not. 85% of strokes that occur are what's called ischemic. This is what I'm talking about, that has the clot or the blockage in an artery. There usually is no pain at all with those strokes. When that occurs, this is where the person will show that symptom in their body. It happens in their brain, but this is where they'll have trouble with their balance or their vision or their motor movement or sensory. There is no pain initially with an ischemic most of the time. In the other small percentage of hemorrhagic strokes where there is an artery that bleeds into or around the brain, those strokes usually have a terrible headache. But those are by far, 12 to 15% of the strokes that occur. But the ones I'm talking about, they do not have pain initially.
So it's possible that there's a scenario where a person's having a stroke. They're watching television, for example, and their face starts to droop, but they don't know it because they're not looking in a mirror. And their speech goes bad, but they're not speaking, they're watching television. So they may be in the grips of a stroke and not even know it if they don't feel pain. And that is why it would be important, like if you're with somebody watching television with them, you look over at them and they see their droopy face, you could be saving them for something that they don't even know that they're suffering from.
Absolutely. That's why I said it's really important to be cognizant of when you're around your family and your friends and you notice something that's strange, something that's new. Now, when you talk about the person with the drooped face and who is alone, I think they definitely would notice something's wrong if they went to drink. They would have a problem keeping the liquid in their mouth. It might kind of drizzle out. So, but someone that's alone might not know if they just had the facial droop or the speech and that they're not using that.
Before we go on to the slide, one other thing I want to ask you, and this is specifically because I spoke with somebody who had a stroke recently, and he experienced a lot of these symptoms, the balance, the uneven face, the slurred speech, lost vision in the eye. But he decided that he would just sit and wait it out. And the symptoms did subside. Is that common or uncommon for the symptoms to subside? Because when it did, he thought, okay, good, I'm glad that's over with. I'm just going to go back to doing what I was doing.
Unfortunately, that is more common than we'd like it to be. It's called stuttering symptoms. The symptoms come and they go and they come and they might get worse. Sometimes they just get a little bit better, and people do tend to say, maybe it's I'm tired, or I'm just working too hard, I need to rest. The thing is, know your body, know what's normal, and when something suddenly changes in the Be Fast, go seek help. Go to the emergency department, because the only way to tell if this is a stroke is to be assessed by taking time to take a nap or wait for it to go away altogether, that's when brain cells are dying at a rate of about 2 million a minute. It is so important that when you experience these changes that are not normal, you call 911 and get to a stroke center.
Stroke basics, reducing your risk of a stroke. This is a summary of a little bit of what we talked about, but as we said, 80% of this can be prevented. You can manage your risks by lowering your blood pressure and your cholesterol, controlling your weight, exercising, avoiding smoking and tobacco use, managing diabetes and other conditions, and be fast. A quick summary again of what the B and the E and the F and the A and the S and the T stand for.
B is balance, E is eyes, F is face, A is arms, speech, and time. Balance, eyes, face, arms, speech, and time. Be fast.
And one of the worst decisions that you can make is decide that you're going to just take a nap until you feel better. Because every minute, you said, did I hear you, 2 million brain cells die every minute?
Yes, 1.9 million die a minute every day in an ischemic stroke. You have a
So
lot
if you're
of
going to
brain
take a 30-minute nap, that's 60 million brain cells are going to die while you're taking your half-hour naps to feel better.
Yes. Plus, there are things we can do to help stop a stroke, and they are all time dependent. So every minute you waste, that ticks away.
Yeah. So I want to remind everybody that if you have questions for Louise and Joanie, who's going to be speaking here in just a moment, feel free to go to your chat window and enter your question in the box, and that way we'll be able to present them directly to Louise. By now, you probably figured out she knows her stuff. I doubt that there's anybody on this planet who knows more about stroke than Louise. Time for you to participate in our poll question number 2. Do you know someone who has had a stroke? So we're going to launch the poll. Grab your phone, and I'm going to be curious to find out how many no's we get, because the statistics are pretty compelling. I have read the American Stroke Association has said that stroke is the 5th leading cause of death in this country. I mean, the impact that it has is pretty significant. And so I'd be curious if we find anybody who has not been touched by this. So again, go to your phone or your computer or your laptop. Let us know, do you know someone who has had a stroke? And or no. And you might also type in your chat window, based on the information that we've heard so far, do you think this stroke could have been preventable, or do you think this person acted appropriately when they found out they had the stroke? And again, I was talking about the person that I met who did not act appropriately, actually let their stroke symptoms subside 3 different times before finally calling 911. Shouldn't do that. He got away with it, but we shouldn't do that. So I'm going to show you the poll results. No, everybody who voted said they do know someone who has had a stroke. This is a widespread issue, and we get more people born in this country every year. Problem is not going away. It affects everybody.
Absolutely, Randy. It affects the whole family, and I'm not surprised that 100% of people know someone that's had a stroke. But I have to say, it's not always how a person looks or acts. For a quick example, the stroke I had is my balance. So I've learned to walk, fairly well. And many people have said to me, "You don't look like you've had a stroke." Mm-hmm. And my response is, well, you haven't seen my brain. Where other people have outward physical disability after their stroke, and you can tell by looking at someone that something's happened. So I also want to point out that stroke is the #1 cause of long-term disability. #5 cause of death, but #1 cause of long-term disability. So that is very significant for the families, for the community, for the patient.
So if you have a high risk of death, you have an even higher risk that if you survive it, then you are going to have a long-term issue to deal with.
Right. And that can be anywhere from just needing assist with your activities of daily living to total assistance, just depending on the size of your stroke. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk now about what's surprising about our survivor lessons, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised because most of these are common sense and free, I have to say. But I think both Joanie particularly and many of us thrive, and we even excel after we have our strokes because we don't let it change our life. We think and we act, be fast, and we teach everyone, be fast. Joanie is a stroke ambassador who comes into our hospital a couple of times every week, and she visits the stroke patients, and she gives them a little fit that we make. It's called Friends in Touch. It's a little pillow that's got instructions how they can use it, but on there is be fast. So she helps us educate them. So it's no be fast. And we're going to talk a little bit about new therapies or treatments. And I want everyone to realize that everyone's experience is different and their outcome. Just think about that brain I showed you at the beginning. It just depends where. And that's me and Joanie at Take Your Brain Out to Play, which happened last week.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Real quick question. Joanie, how old were you when you had your stroke? And Louise, how old were you when you had your stroke?
I was 35.
I was 40.
And it was.
So you were just kids. You were both just kids when you had your strokes.
Time of my life.
Yeah, right. So lesson number 1 is stroke survivors have to listen to your body. You have to rest. Your body will tell you when you need to rest because the symptoms you had when you first had your stroke are going to be a little more prominent. And sometimes people think they're having another stroke with the same symptoms. 99.9% of the time, it's just that their brain they get physically tired. Their brain says, I'm just going to stop. I can't do this anymore. So it stops trying to heal. So I highly encourage stroke survivors to just stop. You don't have to take a nap if you don't want to, but sit down for 10 or 15 minutes. Give your body time to get some oxygen flowing. Take a coffee break. And I think the important thing is to be sure and tell the people around you, your loved ones and your friends, to expect this. Because if they see you doing something, then all of a sudden you just sit down and say, I got to sit down. So you don't want them jumping to a conclusion that, oh my gosh, something's wrong. Let them know that you're going to be taking these little breaks. What do you think, Joanie?
Perfect.
Do you still experience getting tired and having issues?
Definitely like in the evening. And I can't speak very good because when I had my stroke, I couldn't speak at all for 2 weeks. So every once in a while that comes back to haunt me. And but you just have to take it easy and rest.
Yeah. Right. So our second lesson is just do it. So many times over the years, in my years of stroke, I have run into patients and caregivers who tend to become isolated or siloed and think, I can't go here, I can't do that, I can't learn, I can't. So both Joanie and I are big proponents of staying involved.
Yes. Well, we had the Take Your Brain Out to Play just a couple weeks ago, and we had gardening and all this stuff.
The gardening and the rock painting, and the goal of Take Your Brain Out to Play was for survivors and caregivers to come in and learn one new task, one new thing, one new activity, and meet one new friend. And that occurred for all 70 attendees that came to this. So the whole issue is learn something new, as simple as sticking a plant in a little garden container and then nurturing it, or painting a rock. But make yourself get out and enjoy and learn something. It's important to engage into things that you did before your stroke. They have bumpers on bowling alleys, and work on your computer. There are adapters that you can use. So do not become isolated. Make yourself get out, be around other stroke survivors, be around your friends, and just do it.
Like I lost my right hand, and I was right-handed, so I have to learn how to be left-handed. So doing painting left-handed and all that stuff, you just have to try it.
And keep at it, huh? Yeah. Okay. Our next slide will show support. You know, the support team. And don't block your support team out. Your support team is your family, your friends, your therapist, your doctor, but extend that into the community and into support groups that I talked about in the last one. Because people with personal connections, it's shown, are happier, have a higher quality of life. But then don't forget your support team. Your support team needs a pat on the back. They need time for themselves also. So what some of our caregivers have done in our support group is they've shared with that when their loved one goes for a physical therapy appointment or a haircut or something like that, they take that 10 minutes to 15, 20 minutes to run to the coffee shop next door and just sit by themselves and have coffee. You know, sometimes you have to fit in just a little bit of time away. It's very difficult. And when I know I was a caregiver for someone that was very ill, and when people would tell me, you got to take care of yourself, the first thing that pops into your head is, yeah, that's right. But you've just got to make it happen. The quality of life for you and your loved one will be much better. There are those support groups. You could sometimes there is respite care that will help. If you have someone that you have to provide a lot of care for every day, that they can go there for a couple of hours and you can do some community volunteering. You could go to a movie, or you could just take a nap. Persistence pays off. So my message to everyone is just do it. Don't say call me. You know, if when I said that, a friend of a caregiver, don't just say call me if you need me. Just schedule something. You know when their loved one is going to be in an appointment, or the support person can get away for a little bit. Schedule something. Pick them up and just take them out for a cup of coffee. Because when you say call me if you need me, they're probably not going to call. So just do something for them.
Joanie, I have a question for you. I know that after you had your stroke, you couldn't speak for 2 weeks. Were you able to formulate the words in your brain, just not get them out of your mouth? And if that's the case, that seems like it would be incredibly frustrating.
It's very, very frustrating. I just couldn't get it out. I couldn't speak, couldn't do anything. And after 2 weeks, and I was able to speak a word, and then I could repeat what people said, but I couldn't hold down the conversation. So it took many years to be able to talk like I am now.
Wow. And I would imagine that working with your caregiver and your support team, if you're frustrated and they're frustrated, I would imagine that that could be from time to time, you know, just an emotional powder keg.
Yes. And well, I'm fortunately I have my kids to help me, because I was able to read to them, and that helped me to get my speech going. And then
How old were your children? You were 35 at the time. How old were your kids when you went through this?
6 and 8.
So they were more than willing to have somebody read them stories at night.
Yes.
Well, that is a blessing. Lesson number 4 is get handy gear. I don't need somebody to tell me twice to buy some gadgets.
Gadgets are fun, and there's just a whole lot of different things that are available, excuse me, they can assist us in their activities of daily living. It just helps people be the best that they can.
We went off screen.
Are you there, Randy?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, well, we lost the screen, so we'll just talk and you tell me when you're changing. Okay, so we're talking about gadgets. We're going to, you can get special braces, you can get special attachments that go on to various aids that you use, like I talked about, the bumpers, rails for bowling. Joanie has very thick, long blonde hair. So Joanie, tell us about how you do your hair.
Well, I have multiple clips that I put in my hair, and I have ponytail holders that are those little rubber bands with the balls on them. I can do that. But otherwise, I have either my daughter or my husband do my hair, which they've gotten quite good at. Yeah.
Yeah, our list says there's robotic devices, a knob on a steering wheel, toggle closure on the shoes, hair clips, bars, jar openers, rounded knives, and homegrown ideas, which I imagine is whatever MacGyver-y thing that you can think of.
Exactly.
Something I'd like to throw in, Randy, that these don't always have to be costly things. There are a lot of resources people might not know about, such as thrift stores. I've been in thrift shops and found, those what do you call them, grabbers? It looks like a long cane and you can grab things. Community closets. And I would talk to my local agencies, local county or city agencies, and see where resources can be found in the area without having to pay a lot for them. And I do believe, Randy, that you have a video to share with us.
I do. I have 2 videos. We got some scraping some batter or blow drying. Which one would you like to see?
Let's do
the batter.
Show us how to scrape the batter, one-handed brownie batter, into the plate. Now, this is from one of our support group members. I'm going to let Joanie narrate this.
So she has already.
We're seeing a.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So she's already mixed up the batter, and it's extremely frustrating to get the batter into a pan with one hand. So she developed this technique where she has a little piece of Dyson on the top of the counter and on the shelf, and then she puts the handle of the bowl up there. She's not,
yeah, she'll get there.
Yeah. So anyways, she puts the handle up there, and then she
kind of slow it.
It's really slow. There we go. So then to keep it there, then she closes the cabinet and she puts a little hair tie on the knobs to keep it there, and then she scrapes out the bowl and into the pan, so you don't have to hold the bowl.
So
now I'm hungry.
We have some very creative members in our support group. I really thought that one was amazing.
I love that one because that was one of my major problems, was scraping out a bowl.
And that's an example of what you're saying, that it doesn't have to be expensive.
Right.
It can just be creative. The entire cost of that was the cost of a hair tie.
Yeah, hair tie and that little piece of rubber or whatever.
Bowl with a handle.
Yeah. So lesson number 5 is just keep really good company. You got to have fun in your life. You've got to enjoy life. And one of the things we say is you need to enjoy life the same way, only different. Because you definitely have to do things differently. And that's, again, because it helps fight depression, it helps fight isolation, and it helps increase people's happiness quotient. You have
to do it the same way, only different.
Do the same way, only different. So just like I talked about the bowling, Joanie has a fantastic trike, recumbent bike. It's on 3 wheels. I guess you used to ride the 2-wheeler bike, right?
Yeah, before I had the stroke.
Right. So she goes for long rides with her husband. And
we went for 2 rides this weekend.
Yeah. So you can do the same thing, only differently. And we had a stroke survivor in our group, and he was.
I was going to say, Joanie, what are your current challenges? I know that you had a hard time recovering your ability to speak. What other things do you have right now that are just ongoing things that you have to deal with every day?
Well, I'm blank. My hair, which we talked about earlier, and then you asked me yesterday, or whenever that was, that what's one thing I can never do, that can't do since I've had my stroke, and that is braid my hair. Just think about it. You can't do it. Try it.
I have to tell you, Joanie can.
That makes me want to show this video. speaking of hair, this is a little girl I just put up on the screen, and she's not the one who had the stroke. It's the lady who's doing her hair. And what are we looking at here?
She's able to brush her hair and dry it at the same time with a brush taped to the end of the hair dryer.
Oh, I see. So even a simple matter as holding a brush in one hand and the hair dryer in the other, you realize, okay, I can't do that anymore, but I need to do something. And again, a very clever example of what somebody can do when they put their mind to it.
Right. Yes.
All right. And now I don't know if you
Randy,
can see this, but we're.
Randy, I would like to just go back to that last slide for just a second. And when we talk about enlarging your circle, there are a lot of ways to do that, and that's to check with your community centers, Facebook events. You can always find something there, next door websites, hospitals in your area, state agencies, and then I highly encourage people to start a support group. And that seems like it's a very daunting thing, but the National Stroke Association, if you look them up online, they have the best resources to help you step by step to start a support group. Our support group is just amazing, and I really encourage people to get with others and keep enlarging their social circle. Thank you for letting me go back to that.
Sure. What's the main benefit of being around other people who are, they might not be facing the same set of physical challenges that you are, and what's the main benefit that you would draw from spending time with people who are also facing those challenges?
They see that there's other people going through the same thing, or maybe a little different, but everyone is really happy to see someone that's been through the same process. And we just become instant friends. It's like family. And I'm always willing to help and try to figure out what they need to do, and how to take a shower and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And just passing on knowledge.
I think it's really clear. The message that you hear is that we do things the same but different, and we help each other learn what the different is. So recapping today, it's a rest. Be sure you rest when your body's starting to tell you it's tired. Don't push it, or your brain's going to stop and just say, I'm not going to heal right now. Stop and rest, and then just do it. Do some activities, stay busy, learn new things, stretch your learning. Something simple. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to go to school. Support your support team. Really appreciate those people who help you every day. Joanie's husband, helps her with her hair, and I hear her appreciate him all the time. So support the people who help you. Let them realize that they need to have a little bit of time away too. And then there's these gadgets. They're just endless. And then use your creative thinking, huh? Yeah, right. Use your creative thinking. And keep good company. Meet new people. Start new groups. Join events. Just do not become isolated or at home in a silo.
Louise, I heard you use the word appreciate, and I know you referenced it to Joanie's husband, but is going through this, what you've both gone through, do you find that you do appreciate some things more so than you may have in the past? Or do you spend more time thinking of the things that you've lost that you can't do?
Well, there's some days like that, but for the most part, it's appreciate everything we can do. And it definitely, it rocks your world, but then you just appreciate what you have.
Right. I tend to not focus on what I can't wear or what I can't do. I do what I can, and then I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Mm-hmm.
I think positivity.
That's going to bring us to. Positivity goes a long way. That's going to bring us to our next poll. And this question is, so based on the conversation that we've had today, the people who have been listening in, what lesson surprised you the most? We've given you 4 options, talked about the importance of rest, talked about how cool the gear and the gadgets are, the importance of keeping company, not isolating yourself, the benefits of just linking yourselves with other people, whether they're going through this stroke journey or whether they're just regular folk, and the importance of just doing things rather than sitting and becoming lethargic and withdrawn. Or you go to your chat window and type in something else that struck you about this, and we can share that as well. What lesson surprised you the most? And I'm thinking about, for me, it was the importance of rest. It sounds like both of you each day take time, whether you have time or not, to just rest yourselves. I mean, in America right now, we're a driven nation. You know, we never say, "Oh, look at that guy, good for him, he's taking a nap." That's not what our country is based on. And yet, I'm hearing from you that that's a very important thing. So that's what I would have checked. We have a lot of good responses in here, and it's spread pretty well across the board. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now and share it with you, and you can see that just do, keep company, and gear all were equal, but rest was the most important one. I really like that, because basically I think I want permission to get more rest in my own life. So I'm going to say, it's just as important for non-stroke survivors as it is for stroke survivors. I've just made that announcement, and I'm going to take a nap right now, so don't ask me any questions for the next 3 minutes.
Randy, I'd like to say that it has been 23 years since I had my stroke, and I still have to take a rest when I start getting physically tired. So I think that is something that hangs on. And Joanie, it's been...
It'll be 19 years in August.
Yeah. So it is something that hangs on, but I do, on the other hand, want to say that do not give up getting better in other ways. The rest issue is always going to be there, but don't give up doing your physical therapy and getting better. And I thank everybody for coming to our webinar today.
Yeah, we have time now for some questions from the audience. Dennis said that nothing surprises him anymore since his stroke a year ago. And Dennis, by the way, congratulations on still being here with us after a year, because as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, stroke is the 5th leading cause of death. So just getting a chance to rehab and relink with your community and enjoy beautiful days like this, that's an achievement in itself. I do have a couple of questions for both of you. Do you think, getting better, or have you plateaued? I know that Joanie, you said that for the first 2 weeks you couldn't speak a word, and it was a long, hard process of relearning how to speak. Have you reached the point where you're as good as you're going to get, or do you still, through hard work and exercise and repetition, see any improvement now, even after all these years?
So definitely, even after all these years, because I couldn't type or anything, and I do all the email reminders for all the people, and don't listen to your doctor that says that you'll only be good as a year later. That's a bunch of hogwash. So you continue to improve and improve and improve as long as you keep on doing things. Now, if you sit in your chair and be a vegetable, like just watch TV, then you're not going to do that. You have to get out and do things and volunteer, and so.
One good example, Randy, is a member of our group who, after about 5 or 6 years, he couldn't get any more physical therapy through his insurance, so he decided to start water aerobics. This man had lost the use of his right side. He taught himself how to ride the bus and do all the transfers and get to the community center, started water aerobics 3 times a week, and probably, I don't know, how long was that? Few months after he started, he stood up at our support group and slowly raised his right hand to his heart and said the Pledge of Allegiance. There was not a dry eye in that room. Wow. But it goes to show you that it takes, like Joanie said, it takes commitment, and you just keep at it. And you got to keep your muscles and your brain engaged to make improvement. don't listen to those doctors. A year is not it.
I've heard you both say that. Don't listen to your doctor. It sounds like the limits are what you put on yourselves.
Don't believe the 1 year limit.
Okay. Got a question from Regina. She said, what are the chances of suffering a second or even a third stroke?
Regina, when you have one stroke, that increases your risk of having a second. That's why it is so important that you continue to take the medications that your doctor prescribed for you. There's a reason for those. If they're something to keep your blood thin or slick, maybe cholesterol. So control those risk factors that we talked about. Don't smoke, eat healthy, because your risk is elevated of a second stroke, particularly if you don't take control of your health.
And that leads us into a question that comes in from Mary. She says, what about driving? If you're a stroke patient and you're now at an elevated risk for a second stroke, should you drive, or do you owe it to yourself to surrender the keys, owe it to the other people on the road? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that kind of all depends on your deficits, because some people have vision problems, and so that you should not, if you have vision problems, then you should not drive. But I'm can attest that I can drive with one hand, and I have a little knob on my wheel, and knock on wood, I haven't ever had a wreck or anything. So, but it, you know, as long as your deficits are okay, especially vision, then I say go for it.
And if you have a significant paralysis of a hand or an arm, you probably need to be, you need to be able to use it somewhat. So it might take a while. This is not something that if you have a significant paralysis, you're going to start driving right away. And there are an occupational therapist they are the people that deliver driving tests. When a doctor says, no, you shouldn't drive now, but given time, you might. So when that time is up, you can go to an occupational therapist and take this assessment, and they will pass, or if you pass, you'll be able to drive legally, but they will look at your vision and everything. Particularly people with vision should not be driving without being cleared by an occupational therapist first.
Mm-hmm. Mona has tagged onto your comment about the water aerobics. She actually is a teacher at the YMCA. She teaches water aerobics, and she has 3 people who are stroke survivors, and she says all are continuing to recover, and they are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, Mona! Yay! You keep that. We need to advertise that more.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I got another question for you. I know that you don't listen to your doctor when your doctor puts limitations on you. Do you listen to yourself, or do you ever say, I don't think I can do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Maybe I can surprise myself. I mean, do you ever talk yourself out of doing things, or do you talk yourself into trying things?
Well, I'm a bona fide chicken. So
You're
so
a bona fide chicken, is what you said?
Yeah. So, like sports, things like that, I do not do, and that doesn't bother me at all. But other things, I don't know, I can't think of anything specific. But driving, my husband really wanted me to drive because it was hard to not to have be one parent and work and all that stuff. So anyway,
Randy, to answer your question, Joanie does not like to do public speaking, and did not want to do this webinar today, and I asked her, and she is here. So yes, Joanie does push herself into new things. This is one of her broad horizons today.
That's right.
When you mentioned that, I laugh, but realistically, if a person completely lost the ability to speak and then spent so much time and energy just trying to learn how to reform those words, and then said, you know what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be talking on a webinar to hundreds and hundreds of people about my experience. That does seem incredibly unlikely, and yet here you are today, and we're very grateful for that. Before we let you go, I do have one question. I want you to both take a swipe at it. So you have this opportunity to pass one message on to all the people listening and participating in this today about all the things we've talked about. What's the one thing that you want everybody to remember? The one thing.
You go first.
The one thing I want everybody to remember is be fast, because identifying the stroke, someone having it, is the first step to leading to recovery. Be fast. Learn that.
And that's balance, eyes,
face,
arms,
speech, and time.
and time. And if any of those things are indicating that they're going awry, immediately, whether it's you or the person you're with, immediately think to yourself, am I looking at somebody who's having a stroke? Grab that phone, dial 911.
Absolutely.
And Joanie, what would your one thing that you want everybody to take away from this today be?
So join a support group and gather friends, because believe it or not, with all the stuff I do with the stroke group, I didn't join a stroke group for 8 years after I had my stroke. So I think it's very important to be with friends.
Fantastic. I want to thank both of you so much for sharing time with us on this beautiful day. And for everybody who's listening, we made a recording of this today, and that recording is going to be available soon online. So if there's somebody that you would like to listen to what we've talked about today, you'll be able to share that with them as well, along with downloading all of the slides you saw today, the scorecard that you saw today, so that you can check all those boxes and you can, like me, find out that you're at a much higher risk for stroke than you ever imagined. The Be Fast infographic, if you don't remember, balance, eyes, face, arms, what's the S again?
Speech.
Dang it. Speech and time. Dang it. And then we'll have an overview and resources as well. You can also sign up for our monthly e-newsletter, which will give you alerts to future webinars, brief health news, special offers, upcoming local events, and you can sign up for that very easily. Just go to peacehealth.org/email. And there's also going to be a survey coming to you in just a few moments. You can fill that out as well. Thanks so much. Let us know what you think on that survey, because we're always looking for topics of interest that we can share with you, and great guest speakers to give you the information that you need to be healthy. Thanks so much. It's been a joy. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.